Well, let's go back to Sydney now, where no doubt you've heard about the decision of Cumberland Council last night to ban books from public libraries that relate to same-sex couples. It started with one particular book, which is for young kids when they're first learning to read, that was about same-sex parents. The motion was put up last night and passed 6-5. The motion, of course, from Steve Christou, who this afternoon spoke to Chris Kenny about why he did this.
We're reflecting the views of what we feel is a majority of our local community. Cumberland City Council is a unique mix of our culturally diverse people. 60% of the population were born overseas. They hold deeply conservative family and religious values, and they are very concerned when books impede into libraries, not just on same-parent books, but any books which might interrupt a child's freedom on innocence and being able to come into the library and enjoy just being a child. Let kids be kids.
Now the Mayor says she's looking into ways to have this overturned, and the state government has stepped in and said they're going to look at a way to remove funding from Cumberland Council's libraries. The Arts Minister, John Graham, said when civilisations turn to burning books or banning books, it's a very bad sign. That is equally true for local councils. It's up to readers to choose which book to take off the shelf. It should not be up to local councillors to make that choice for them or engage in censorship. Now, I tend to think the comparison to burning books is a little bit over the top.
Yeah, chuck in an reference.
Exactly.
That's how you win any argument.
And the concept of removing funding from the council is also patently ridiculous. Let's not overstate this. It was one decision about a small number of books. I do have to say, though, if the book were in a school, I would absolutely have a problem with it because it's being foisted upon the kids. But I don't really see the issue with the book being in a public library where the parent has to make the decision about whether or not the child takes the book home anyway. I mean, we're talking about a book that was aimed at 5-year-olds,
But it's not about whether they take the book home. You go to a library, your kids are in the kids section, they pick this up and they immediately have at least 5 questions.
Right. And you answer the questions, don't you?
No, you don't want those questions. From a standpoint of, oh, well, the kid will never read it unless the adult borrows out the book. That's not true at all. Kids browse just like adults do, and they pick which books, and then they say, Mummy, Daddy, these are the ones that I want, and that's when you get to take the books home. Parents bring their children with them to these libraries.
So to what extent do we make the decision that on moral lines certain books should or should not be in a library? That's what concerns me. I mean, look, that's one point. The other thing that I actually quite enjoy about this is that the left is now having to stare in the face the consequences of migration, because you're talking about quite a large Muslim population down in Cumberland Council. And one of the councillors who voted in favour of this motion was a Labor councillor who is also a Muslim, and he has been roundly criticised by members of his own party today for doing so. But he has a very legitimate answer that, well, he's simply defending the beliefs of his religion and the beliefs of a large part of his community. So for the left to now have to actually look at, well, the people we want here actually have a different version of morality to the one we do, I find quite funny. But at what point do we say, well, this morality is OK, that morality isn't in terms of a book that's allowed in a library?
Well, you give local residents in their local shire the ability to determine what they think is suitable for their children and what is not. So if you live in Newtown or somewhere like that and you want books like that in your library, which I suppose people in that area, they tend to be more progressive, probably wouldn't have a problem. But where you've got 60% of residents born overseas, they have deep traditional family values and they're religious and they don't want that in their library, well, why should the state government insist that they must have it? This is a state government where a local council decides we don't want the Australian flag being shown and the government are mute. A local council can decide we're not going to promote Australia Day and the government are mute. But the council says we're not going to promote same-sex parenting, and all of a sudden the state government... What, you're not going to promote same-sex parenting, we're going to withdraw funding. Where was the Arts Minister when Roald Dahl books were being edited and removed
don't
from
disagree
libraries.
with the ridiculousness.
He was absent from the debate, but all of a sudden on this issue, he wants to foist on religious communities material they don't want. And he has a shot at the local council. He's going to penalise the local council for representing ratepayers. The Labor Party should try that.
Yeah, and
imagine representing the people who vote for you.
And there's people actually arguing this isn't within the purview of a local council, like 99 times out of 100. That is true when we bring up these council issues. But as a former city councillor myself, local libraries are completely within our purview. They are council libraries, and these guys are just doing what they were elected to do, and that is represent the interests of their communities. So 2 thumbs up from me to these 6 councillors who went into the lion's den and said, look, if people want to access these books, order them online. Buy a whole library full of them yourself. It's not like you don't have access to this material anymore. No, it's freely available to you. But the vast majority of our constituency says they don't want to be taking their kids into a library where kids can pick up this kind of content and be confused by what they're seeing. I think that's completely right and fair. It's not about book burning and all this
that
rubbish.
Is over the top.
Oh, it's hysterical from the Arts Minister.
Well, that's why he's the Arts Minister. He's a drama queen, clearly.
But as you pointed out, Caleb, this is the fruits of multiculturalism.
And that's the funny thing about it.
So you love calling yourself a multicultural society, but when it comes to any of those cultures saying, well, hang on a minute, we don't like the state religion you're foisting on us, we're not on board with this, suddenly the state goes to war on this multicultural society that they're otherwise so proud of.